Namaste, welcome to Himalai. This is Keshav Sir's PRELIMS Lens, Chapterwise General Studies, Questions and Answer Explanation. We'll be continuing with the history topics. These topics specifically. Question: who of the following had first deciphered the edicts of Emperor Ashoka? Option A, George Bueller. Option B, James Prinsep. Option C, Max Muller. Option D, William Jones. James Prinsep was a British scholar who was interested in Oriental studies, or in other words, study of Asian cultures. He was a part of Asiatic Society of Bengal. And in the year 1837, he was the first person who deciphered the edicts of Ashoka. The edicts he deciphered were in Kharosthi and Brahmi scripts. So the right option would be option B, James Prinsep. Next question. With reference to the invaders in ancient India, which one of the following is the correct chronological order? Option A, Greeks, followed by Shakas, followed by Kushanas. Option B, Greeks, followed by Kushanas, followed by Shakas. Option C, Shakas, Greeks, Kushanas. Option D, Shakas, followed by Kushanas and followed by Greeks. If you look at the historical events involving foreign invasions in northwestern part of India, Alexander the Great was the earliest well-known foreign invader to India. He invaded in around 327 BC, and he actually left behind a vast territory under the rule of his governors, military governors. In around 200 BC, these Greeks declared their independence from the Greek kingdom and they started to rule independently. They were known to us as Indo-Greek kingdoms or else Bactrians. Their rule started from around 200 BC. The Greeks were followed by Shakas. They controlled much larger area and they were a collection of many clans. Among all of these clans, Rudradaman I was one of the major ruler of Shakas. Shakas were followed by Kushanas, whose founder was Cadphises I. It is also important to know that one of the major rulers of Kushanas was Kanishka, who ruled from 78 to 120 AD. And the rule of Kushanas marks a very important phase in the art, architectural, and also cultural development of Indian civilization. So the right answer will be Greeks, followed by Shakas, followed by Kushanas. Question: consider the following statements. The last Mauryan ruler, Brihadratha, was assassinated by his commander-in-chief, Pushyamitra Shunga. Statement 2. The last Shunga king, Devabhuti, was assassinated by his Brahmana minister, Vasudeva Kanva, who usurped the throne. Statement 3. The last ruler to the Kanva dynasty was deposed by the Andhras. These are the options given to you. In the year 185 BC, the last Mauryan king, Brihadratha, was not able to manage the empire, and it was taken as an opportunity by his commander-in-chief, Pushyamitra Shunga, to start his own rule. The Shungas ruled from Pataliputra as their capital and were one of the major empires in central and eastern India at that time. So the statement 1 is correct. The last Shunga king, Devabhuti, in the year around 73 BC, was assassinated by his Brahmana minister, who started his own rule called the Kanva dynasty. Kanva dynasty had 4 rulers, and they were also very significant in Indian history. However, their last king was killed by a person called Bali Butcha, who laid the origins to Andhra dynasty, which also is known as Shatavahana dynasty. Just for your information, Gautamiputra Shatakarni was one of the greatest ruler of Shatavahana dynasty. So, going by this understanding, all the 3 statements are correct. So, the right option is option D. Next question. Which one of the following ancient Indian records is the earliest royal order to preserve food grains to be utilized during the crisis in the country? So, from the question itself, you can make out it was a welfare state. It cared for the welfare of the people. Option A, Sahagara copper plate. Option B, Ruminde pillar, edict of Ashoka. Option C, Prayaga Prashasti. Option D, Mehrauli pillar inscription of Chandragupta Maurya. No, sorry, Chandragupta, the Gupta king. Sahagara copper plate is the oldest Indian copper plate inscription. It is written in Prakrit language. Carbon dating estimates it around 3rd century BC, and it was found in the present day Uttar Pradesh, and it is regarded as it is possibly belonging to Mauryan Empire. In that inscription, it mentions the establishment of grain depots to fight famines. So, going by this understanding, the right option is option A. Please go through the option B, option C, and option D in Google and try to know the importance of the other 3 inscriptions. The right option here is option A. Question. Which one of the following statements regarding Ashokan stone pillars is incorrect? Option A, these are highly polished. Option B, these are monolithic. Option C, the shaft of pillars is tapering in shape. Option D, these are parts of architectural structure. Now, Ashokan pillars were standalone structures. They were not accompanied by any other architectural elements. They were laid out all along his empire during the time of Ashoka. Pillars were a major part in spreading his policy of Dhamma and Buddhism. Their architectural design was followed from Greek styles. It was monolithic, it was highly polished, and it had animal emblems at the top. And the pillars had edicts which preached Ashoka's policies, rules, and idea behind his Dhamma. Going by this understanding, option A, B, C are correct. Option D is not true because they were standalone structures, not accompanied by any other form of structure like stupa or any viharas. So the incorrect statement here is option D. Please try to go through important pillars of Ashoka. Question. Which one of the following edicts mention the personal name of Ashoka? Option A, Kalsi. Option B, Ruminde. Option C, Special Kalinga Edict. Option D, Musky Edict. In most of the edicts, Ashoka was referred by the name Devanam Priyadarshi, which means a person who is dearer to the gods. However, it was in the Musky Edict that for the first time provided the complete name of this person called Priyadarshi. It mentioned Devanam Priya Ashoka. So this is how we come to know of an important ruler of ancient Indian civilization, who is Ashoka the Great. This Musky edict was in Brahmi script and found in the present day Raichur, Karnataka. So the right option is option D. The next question. The name by which Ashoka is generally referred to his inscription is option A Chakravarti, option D Dharmadeva, option C Dharmakirti, option D Priyadarshi. Ashoka the Great. He was regarded as one of the greatest emperors who laid the foundations of a welfare state, of the idea of a welfare state in our civilization, who saw his own subjects as their own children, and he actually was regarded as a person who looked after their subjects, their requirements, their development without any discrimination. So he was seen as a person who implemented the God's will in his kingdom. Hence, he was also known by the name Devanam Priyadarshi, which means a person who is dearer to the gods. So the right option is option D. Please read about Ashoka's policy of Dhamma and why he is regarded as one of the greatest rulers who ever ruled on Indian soil. Question. The practice of military governorship was first introduced in India by the option A, Greeks, option B, Shakas, option C, Parthians, option D, Mughals. Greeks were by far among the top military conquerors in the world. The major ruler, the most important ruler being Alexander the Great. Now, one of the reasons why Greeks could conquer so much because they gave chance to the meritorious people to rule instead of giving choice to other royals, relatives, or nobles. So this is the reason why they gave a choice to merit, and they gave their parts of the territory to the military generals to rule. And it is also important to know one such important military general during the time of Chandragupta Maurya was Seleucus the first Nicator, who also sent an ambassador to the Mauryan court. So the right option is option A. Question. Which one of the following dynasties was ruling over North India at the time of Alexander's invasion? Alexander started his Indian campaign from 327 BC, and at that time, the Greek accounts mention that Alexander had to face the might of Nandas. Nandas at that time had such an army which created fear in the ranks of Alexander's empire that they revolted against Alexander, who wished to proceed and attack the Nandas. So, going by this understanding, option A is the right answer. Question. With reference to the scientific progress of ancient India, which of the following statements given below are correct? Statement 1. Different kinds of specialized surgical instruments were in common use by 1st century AD. Statement 2. Transplant of internal organs in the human body had begun by the beginning of 3rd century AD. Statement 3. The concept of sine of an angle was known in 5th century AD. Statement 4. The concept of cyclic quadrilaterals was known in 7th century AD. These are the options. Going by the statements and going by the historical developments, the names of Aryabhata, Bodhayan, Brahmagupta, mathematicians like astrologers like them, it is quite evident that statement 1, statement 3, and statement 4 are correct and also possible. Important people like Charaka and Shushruta, they had fulfilled some great developments in medicine, and other mathematicians had also done these sort of mathematical works. But the statement 2 seems very far-fetched. Transplant of internal organs. It is such a thing, and there is no much evidence for this. So you can consider that statement 2 is far-fetched and not right. So the right option will be option C. Statement 1, 3, and 4 are correct. The next thing is CSAT English comprehension. The passage is given. A landscape scale approach to land use can encourage greater biodiversity outside protected areas. Outside protected areas, remember this. During Hurricane Mitch in 1998, farms using eco-agricultural practices suffered 58%, 70%, and 99% less damage in Honduras, Nicaragua, and Guatemala, respectively, than farms using conventional techniques in Costa Rica. Vegetative windbreaks and fence rows boosted farmers' income from pasture and coffee while also increasing bird diversity. Bee pollination is more effective when agricultural fields are closer to natural or semi-natural habitat. A finding that matters, semi-natural habitat. A finding that matters because 87% of the world's 107 leading crops depend on animal pollinators. In Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and Colombia, silvopastoral systems that integrate trees with pasture land are improving the sustainability of cattle production and diversifying and increasing farmers' income. Now, before going into what the options are, let us try to get the essence of the paragraph. See, the paragraph speaks about sustainable agriculture. It speaks about maintaining diversity. It speaks about maintaining resilience to damages, to disasters, and using an approach outside protected areas. So before we look into the option, this is the message that we can carry. So the question, which among the following is the most logical and rational interference that can be made from the above passage? Option A, agriculture practices that enhance biodiversity can often increase farm output and reduce the vulnerability to disaster. Option B, all the countries of the world should be encouraged to replace eco-agriculture with conventional agriculture. Option C, eco-agriculture should be permitted in protected areas without destroying the biodiversity there. Option D, the yield of food crops will be very high if eco-agriculture practices are adopted to cultivate them. Now, option D, they're not talking about yield and they're not telling it will be very high, but rather they're giving a message that it will be sustainable. So D is somewhat not matching. Option C, they're not telling or giving a instruction that it should be permitted in especially protected areas. They're talking about outside protected areas. So option C is also not relevant. Option B, all the countries of the world should be encouraged to replace eco-agriculture with conventional. No, they're talking about replacing conventional with eco-agriculture. So B is wrong. Option A, agriculture practices that enhance biodiversity can often increase farm output and reduce the vulnerability to disaster. This is definitely right and most suitable because they're talking about enhancing bee pollinators, bird diversity, and all these things which also help in maintaining or increasing farm output and also ensuring sustainability. So the right option is option A. When you go through questions like this comprehension, make sure that even though the options may seem right, just ensure that if it is relevant to the context of the given paragraph, and it should not be out of the context even though it is right. Okay. Thank you. All the best.